Hi everyone, so today I'm going to be working on this 6x6" waterboard colour pad or board, and I'm going to be creating a mixed media project with craft box products. I'm very excited about this. Sorry about my little pinky, I've got a little pinky outfit, so it's gonna cast a little bit of shadow, but I thought I'm going to start from creating a little bit of a texture, and I'm quite excited about this. So I've got a tissue paper. This one is just a little bit faded. It can be any tissue paper, it really doesn't matter. The color doesn't matter. Obviously if it's light and you're working on a lighter project, it's just going to be easier for you to cover. I've got a brush and it's just full of gesso. Again, it doesn't matter that much. I'm going to use a matte gel medium from Craftbox, and I'm going to apply this gel medium through the entirety of my board. So the matte gel medium is very strong. It's a very strong adhesive. It comes to you in a 100ml bottle with a little instruction about what to do, what it's used for, and you can apply it with your palette knife. You can apply it with a brush. So here I'm just going to give it a very I'm just going to give my board a quick cover with the gel medium. It's not incredibly fast drying. It's drying. It catches metal elements if you're adhering them fast enough so they don't come off, and it's also thick enough. So from this perspective, it's awesome. But when you're trying to do techniques, you know, it doesn't dry straight away, which is great. Obviously, you need to apply, you know, a little bit of a thicker coat. So I'm going to start from just applying my tissue, and what I'm going to do is just now and again I'm going to kind of crinkle it just like so, and I'm going to do that across the entire piece. As you can see, this fold here is maybe a little bit too big, but it doesn't matter. I was more going for like a little, almost like a crackle effect without actually applying crackle paste. So I'm going to now take the gel medium again, and I'm going to apply it across the entire surface, just like so, just making sure everything is adhered. As you can see, I've got tiny little bits of something black. It's just old paint coming off my brush because I haven't cleaned it well enough, but it doesn't really matter in this case, as I mentioned before. Now I am going to lift this up and I'm going to tear any excess. Now it's all wet with the gel medium. It's going to be super easy to do. Now, if you're wondering where to get the tissue paper from, obviously any wrapping, but also if you get a craft box, there's always a tissue paper in craft box. So that might be a good source of those little packaging extras as well. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to zap it with my heat gun. Alright, so now the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take white gesso from Craftbox, and again it comes in 100ml bottle, and I am going to cover this entire surface with white gesso now. So all those little cracks that we created with the tissue paper, the gel medium is a really smooth, beautifully smooth drying medium, so it's a pleasure to actually cover anything that has been primed with it. That's good enough for me. This is just a rough surface, so I'm just going to give it a dry with a heat gun. So now and again I'm checking if everything is dry. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take one of our stencil pastes, and I'm going to take the one called Silver. You may be wondering why on earth I'm taking the stencil paste for this purpose. After all, it says stencil. The stencil pastes are actually really good paints as well as stencils. They're quite thick, so they act as a really good coverage paint. Just have a look at this. This one obviously is a pearl silver paint, a stencil paste. So just like any really thick acrylic can be treated like any thick acrylic. So I'm just going to cover the entire surface of this with the silver. And now these stencil pastes are really nice, fast drying. So you can do obviously color blending techniques with these because they take a few minutes to dry, so they don't dry instantly like some of the other paints on the market, but they really dry, you know, fast enough for you not to get frustrated. What I'm going to do also is I'm going to take the light pink paste and just show you a little color blending technique. So just going to take a little bit of that and then just brush it through the bottom. So this will just add a very, very subtle hue. Nothing major, just a little kind of peach, light pink, subtle hue. Really, really lovely colour. Here you go. Right, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to zap it with my heat gun. When you apply a heat tool to our products, they dry incredibly quickly. If you have your stencil paste applied really thickly, it will bubble up if your heat gun is too close, which is actually a fantastic effect in itself. However, if you're just moving your heat gun quite a lot and just trying to speed up the drying process, then that just works great. Okay, I am going now to show you a little idea, trick, however you want to call it, that I had. And for this I am going to need the gel medium gloss. Now this is for me it's quite important that it's a gloss one, because I actually want the final effect to be glossy. So I'm going to take 3 scoops of gel medium gloss. I probably don't need that much, so I'm just going to be just a little bit more frugal here and apply the final one here. And I'm going to take 3 pigments, and the pigments I'll take are the silver. I am going to take the copper as soon as I find it, copper, and I'm going to take gold. So I'm going to take, hold on, let me show you. I'm going to take these 3, and these are the shades, so you can see beautiful metallic shades. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a tiny little scoop, and I'm going to apply a little bit of pigment to each one of those 3 gels. So as you can see, this is incredibly metallic. Let me just take that gold off. Incredibly metallic, and the more you add, the more metallic it will be. So I'm just adding some silver here. I'm just going to quickly wipe my scoop and then take some gold onto this one. I think this is like an everlasting pigment. I don't know if you can actually ever run out of it. And then you've got gold. Now, sorry, this is copper, not gold. Just going to add that up. I do want that to happen. They are quite slippery, and they actually come off the spatula really easily. They don't like scoop up and bunch up. So just keep that in mind, especially if you're doing what I'm doing and obviously trying to separate them. I'm just going to scrape that and just apply them here. Now I'm going to give it a good mix. They do kind of want to fly out, so you need to be careful not to just start pressing it from the top. Just take it from the side and give it a really good mix here. So that's one. I'm just going to give it a quick wipe. Now I'm going to take gold, and as you can see I'm starting slow because it's only too easy to get it absolutely everywhere. It almost acts like a cake that you're adding more flour to. Initially it's all not even a one product, and you need to give it a good mix. It's just like milk, it's like mixing any powder into your gels or into your wet ingredient, really. Okay, that will do just fine. And then I'm just going to push that one, and very, very gently, as you can see, I need to lift this up a little and then just pick up all my silver pigment and give it a good nice mix. This is such a beautiful effect. Fabulous. Okay, so I've got those three, and I've also got my project, and as you can see, I got this metallic pigment across my entire piece. Okay, and I am going to take a little swirl, and I'm going to apply my three pastes. So I'm going to start with silver. Just apply it through my stencil. Applies beautifully because the gel medium, which is a base for our paste, is really smooth, really nicely balanced. Okay, so I've started with the silver. Now I'm just going to clear that off my spatula, and I'm going to take, hold on, I'm thinking I'm going to take the copper, and there may be a little bit of colour blending going on there. Just going to push that away. Okay, just going to place it down, and then if there is a little bit of colour blending, that's perfectly fine. Okay, here you go. So I blended these together, and then I'm going to put that to the side, and I'm going to take the gold on my spatula, and again put it somewhere around here. I'm just going to try not to press too hard on the previous coat. Awesome, that's beautiful. Okay, now here and there I'm going to add a little bit of accent, so like so. Just going to add a little bit of gold here, and as I already have gold on my spatula, I'm going to add it here, place it down, and I'm going to take some of the copper on my spatula again, and I think we are going to add it in the corner somewhere there in the corner, something like that. And as you can see, this is blending with the gold now, so it's quite interesting concoction. Perfect. Okay, I think we need a little bit more silver. I don't know how that silver is going to work out because my stencil is quite covered now in all the other colors, but hold on, we're just going to add a little bit here. It doesn't matter because if it blends, it blends, and then it's just going to give us a better effect. I just need to cover this corner here. Fantastic. Okay, I think this looks absolutely awesome. Have a look at this, absolutely gorgeous. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take a white gesso and a piece of snip art. And this is snip art ornate background, that's how we call it. And I've just pounced white gesso on top of it, and I'm going to do exactly the same with this cutout. As soon as I find my white gesso again, white gesso, just going to take a little more and then just cover this. Most of the recent snip art cutouts are really pale. Some of the older ones may be just a little bit more brown because it was dependent on how Marta from Snip Art was had her laser set up. So just going to give it, is that where the heat go? obviously dries in no time. And then the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to do a little bit of colouring, and I'm going to work with my velvet pastes. And going to start with the velvet paste in the colour Brass, and I'm also going to add a velvet paste in a slightly darker colour, which will be the Old Brass. So we're going to use Brass and Old Brass. As you can see, these have different colours. This one has a little speckles of silver that I have because I've used it with something else, and then this one has a little speckles of green because I've used it with something else. I tend to contaminate them and just work with the same brush. These are my working pots. Obviously, when you have your own pots, be careful, unless you just don't mind having a little bit of contamination here and there. Okay, so I am going to start with the lighter colour, and I'm going to pounce it on top of my ornate background. Now, the velvet paste has a very, very fine grit, and when it dries completely, it gives that effect of a shiny but matte finish, if that makes sense. Probably doesn't. When it dries, it basically looks like the top of it is matte, but there's a little bit of pearl when you look closer, so it still gives you that metallic look. It's amazing, and I just really like blending two colours together. So now I'm taking a little bit of Old Brass, and I'm just going to go diagonally, and as you can see, it just creates this fantastic, nice and vintage blend, if you can see that from this angle. Now on this piece, I am just going to take the lighter colour. I've got a little bit of darker already on my brush, so that will do fine. And just to add a little bit of interest to this, let me just close these pastes because we don't want them dry next time I use it. I am going to take a little bit of antique gold pigment, and whilst that paste is still wet, just going to open this up. This pigment is kind of between copper and gold. It's a really interesting look and colour. I'm just going to take a little fan brush and then just apply it in a few places. Now I am going to try to grab less of the pigment because I don't really want it everywhere. It doesn't always work this way, but it's fine. Just a little bit of accent. Let's have a look at it, a little close up. This is what it looks like, and when it dries, it's going to be completely embedded in that little piece. Now I have also created this little mold. This is just made with a soft clay and with one of the Prima molds. I am going to take this one, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to take two colours of the pigments. So I'm going to take antique gold, and I think I'm going to take dark gold. So shades quite close together. I'm just going to do, they come protected like this just to make sure that nothing gets spilled in shipping. So you obviously need to take all of that protecting foam off. And you need to use a dry brush for this technique. So I'm just going to take a dry brush like so, and I'm just going to start with this gold here, and very gently just going to brush it on this clay. Now the clay is still wet, so this will give me a really interesting effect. And I'm going to take a little bit of darker colour, and then wherever I'd create a little bit of shadow, I'm just going to place that. Here we go. Okay, so this is a really, really interesting effect here. I am going to take my fan brush, and I'm just going to try to smooth out a lot of that. So just to give me this really interesting metallic effect. Okay, so I've got all these elements ready for me, and I'm going to bring the canvas back. So now that I have my snip art elements all decorated, I'm going to start applying them to my project. And I've also collected a bunch of embellishments. These are all from craft books. We have a number of flowers, resin pieces, and also metal pieces available on the website. So you may want to grab them either in the shape or form of a treasure tin, for example, or just individual pieces that we do have available for you. So I'm going to start applying this to my project, including this amazing side here. And so I've also created, from the same mold, I've also created a watch, or rather a street clock, which I'm going to decorate in just a second. But I'm going to start from applying. Now, to apply my embellishments, I am using the gel medium matte. The reason why I'm using the matte version this time is because I want the final effect to be matte, and I don't want any gel medium to show in case I miss something and there's just too much showing through the embellishments. Then it's much easier to obviously hide it if it doesn't gloss in the sunlight or any light, in fact. So I'm just going to pop that down. Here we go. I am going to be quite generous with gel medium. This is a mixed media project, so obviously it has a number of quite heavy embellishments. Maybe not necessarily the snip art ones, but some other ones do have some weight to them. So I'm just going to press that down and just make sure that it adheres to both the trellis and also the bottom of the canvas. So that may take a little bit of coaxing to make sure that it's in place. Here we go. I might actually just push that a little bit further just to spread out those embellishments. So I've just taken it off and reapplied it. Now I know that I want my this embellishment rather. So I'm going to apply it. I am being quite gentle with it because it's not completely dry, and it's foam like when it's both when it's wet and when it's dry, and it's incredibly light. So it's just going to dry on my canvas, and it's just going to eventually adhere as well. Now let's have a think about what we're going to do with this fantastic clock. So we've got a number of options, but I am thinking I might apply what colour. So I think I'm going to take the velvet paste in light blue. Now if you're struggling with opening this, it's handy to have just a little piece. I've got a knife, and then just open it this way. It's just much easier. And I'm going to take a brush, and actually my brush is still loaded with that brown, and I think that might actually work fine. So I'm just going to pick this up and super gently apply it onto the surface of my clock. The reason why I'm doing it really gently is because this is still wet. This is still quite pliable, so it's quite soft, and this clay that I'm using is not going to get completely set for about 24 hours. So when I am applying any color to it, I need to be careful that I'm not going to disturb the actual surface of it. And I'm going to take off all that lovely coloring. Now I am thinking, I really like how gold looks with blue, so I'm going to take my fan brush and I'm going to take one of the gold colors, and I'm going to go for the one called white gold, and just going to put my fan brush in there and then gently apply some of the pigment, and I'm just going to kind of make a ombre effect. So just still make that blue show, because I think just blue looks amazing with gold. But as you can see diagonally, I'm going to do that ombre effect. Gorgeous. Okay, this will be placed somewhere there eventually. So the next step I'm going to do is I'm going to apply these clay embellishments. Now these have been created with the mold, and then I have added some mica powders on top just to give them that nice shiny effect. So it's just a little bit of clay put through the mold with a little bit of a mica pigment on top. I'm going to again apply them and adhere them with my gel medium. So I'm just going to take a little bit and then just make sure I've got a sufficient amount just so that it's stuck to the surface. Here we go. And then do the same here. Just apply it like so. And then I'm going to take my clock. Actually, let me just work on organizing this a little bit better. Just getting that arrangement right is important. So then I'm going to take my clock and I'm going to take the ends of it, like buttering a sandwich, and then apply it onto here and then straighten this up. And this is how I'm going to let it dry. Now on the side I'm going to add just some flowers, and I've got some leaves here as well. So just going to apply it just underneath there, and then I'm going to add another one and just pop it here. Beautiful. And then I've got just a few little mulberry flowers, and the glues are absolutely perfect for applying those as well. So I'm just going to place one here, and then I'm going to take another one. This one is a little pinky one, and then just apply it somewhere here. That's cute. Now I've got some of those swirly embellishments, so I'm just going to take a little bit of gel medium and then just apply them around this project, just to kind of build up the focal point and then draw the attention to the center. And then I've got this metal corner, a brass corner, so I'm going to add this one, and then it will be applied here. Maybe just push it a little bit further down. Yeah, that's fine. Give it a nice good press, and then just maybe some more of those swirly elements because they're adorable. Here we go. Some more. Just a little bit of interest. Perfect. That is lovely. Now I've got some of those beautiful resin flowers. They were from our angel collection, and I'm just going to apply them in just some areas. And I've got these which were hand cast by me. I'm trying to make sure that I work on my layers. So what I mean by this is that I obviously build everything from ground up. So you've got the board, you've got tissue paper, and then you've got paints, you've got stencil, then you've got the snip art, then you've got snip art that's slightly raised. So I'm just building the layers. So I don't want to put embellishments that are really prominent on a side, because the highest point needs to be my focal point. So the clock is going to be my highest point, and these embellishments here are quite high. So I just need to be quite careful not to apply too many of them and then just distract from my focal point. Okay. Going to add one more here. Now as you can see, these are white, so we are going to be working on them in a second. And I've got this lovely little cage here, and I'm going to apply it here. Okay, beautiful. Lovely. Okay, now as you can see, everything on this artwork so far is pretty much colored differently. So we are going to work on basically making it slightly more coherent. So we got some of the flowers. Yes, of course, I could have gessoed them before, but it didn't cross my mind because I really was working hard my composition. So I am going to take a brush now, and just a small little brush and some white gesso. So I'm going to take some white gesso on my little brush and then just give the resin flowers a coat of white gesso. Now you may be wondering why I'm gessoing flowers that are already white, and the reason for this is because they're not going to absorb any product if I don't do this. So I need to make sure that they are primed first, and I'm just going to give it a super quick zap with the heat gun. And now I'm going to take the same little brush and I'm just going to take a little bit of stencil paste, and this one is in bronze. Okay, so a little bit of a bronze stencil paste. Just going to clean my brush, and I'm just going to treat it as a paint, and then just give those flowers a subtle coat so they don't stand out this way. It's the same, so they don't stand out so prominently, basically. Just make them blend. Alright, and then I'm going to take a little bit on the brush, and then obviously everything is still wet, but I'm just going to gently dry brush those elements underneath. And what I'm going to do actually with that clock, just going to add a little bit of that copper on the edges, just to make it even a little bit more metallic. I know what I said about the blue, but you can always change your mind. This one looks a little bit more patina now. Okay, and I'm going to take some to the side of this resin, just to make sure it blends. Okay, I'm going to take a really wide fluffy brush. This one is not as fluffy as I would like, but it will have to do for now. And I'm going to take some of the stencil paste, this brass one, and work it into bristles of my brush. So what I'm doing here, let me just move it a little bit. What I'm doing here is I'm just working it into the bristles of the brush. So just use it like a paint. And the reason why is because I'm going to be dry brushing. So I'm going to take my project and then add this paint to the top of all the embellishments, just to tie it all together, including the flowers. So very gently, as you can see, I'm going to start applying that brass. Now this is a great technique to tie a project together and make all the colors really sing and work with each other really well. We just need to add that common element. So I'm just going to add a little bit more to all this, and I am going to go a little bit outside as well. And then the last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to sprinkle a little bit of gold, and one of my favorite golds is actually the one called gold, because it's just really pale, really. Another one is also white gold. That is one of my favorites, and that's slightly kind of warmer. Okay, so I am going to take a very, very thin brush, just like so. And I'm just going to sprinkle this pigment on top of my project, just like so, tying it all together. Okay, and then I'm going to take a spray. So I'm taking a glimmer mist. Actually, the reason why I'm not taking water is because I want something that has fixative in it. So I'm going to use glimmer spray, and I'm just going to give it a little bit of a spray on top, and I will straight away dry it. That's awesome. And as a final touch, I'm going to use this butterfly and some of the embellishments I've got. So I'm just going to use gel medium for this again. So this butterfly is from my stash. Any type of butterfly mold or embellishment I think will work beautifully with a project like that, especially something that already has some gold. So I'm just going to fluff up its wings, and that's that. And I'm also going to take some of the sparkles I've got, and these are from my last trip to US. So I'm just going to take some of those and just going to apply them in a few places. Don't go anywhere, and they are very super sticky. So I might obviously you may want to add some gel medium. I'm just going to apply them as they are. Just in a few places, and then just here. Just place them strategically so they shine. You don't need to add many either. I'm going to add one here, and then one there. Awesome. And I've also got some of those metal studs here. They come in gold and silver. I've never used them before, so that's going to be an interesting experience. Oh, how interesting. Awesome. Okay, so they don't have this, they don't have any sticky at the bottom, so that's fine. So I'm just going to add that. Just going to have to find a place for those. Awesome. And maybe like a silver one somewhere. So just putting a silver one there as well. And get it here. Fabulous. So that is my project finished. I am going to list everything that I've used in this video at the bottom in the description. If we don't have anything on the website yet, it will be in the next couple of days. And for the time being, just have a look at this is my project. As you can see, tons of layers, tons of mixed media. Beautiful. Beautiful gold effect. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you again next time. Bye.